Okay, council, it's 7 o'clock. Will everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Up next, we have roll call. Thank you. All right, Ms. Martinez.
All counselors present with Counselor Carson and Counselor Woodward previously requesting to be excused.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we have the agenda approval. Counselor Vigil.
Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda excusing Mr. Carson and Mr. Woodard from the meeting.
And Mayor, prior to that, I would recommend maybe we modify the agenda to move item 3A, which is the second reading in public hearing for ordinance number 5-2022 to be the first item under business brought forward by city staff.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks.
I'll add that to my motion.
Okay,
I second.
we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Okay. If not, please start voting. Ms. Martinez?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, great. Okay, that brings us to the next item on our agenda, and that's citizen comments. Tonight, I know we have quite a few, well, a few comment cards for people who may want to make comments on the citizen comments, but we're also going to have a hearing, a public hearing to where you'll be able to make those comments during the public hearing. So if any of you here for the recall ordinance that's on the agenda and you want to just wait until that time to make those comments, you're more than welcome to wait until that time. You don't have to do it at this part. But for those of you who may not be able to wait and need to come up here, I'll call your names on the card. And if you still want to come during this time, you can. We do ask that you do keep your comments to within 3 minutes, in which we have a timer right here. We also ask that if you're still talking at the 3-minute mark, when the timer goes off, I will politely ask you to end your conversations at that time. We also ask that you be civil and be mindful of the people who are talking. We don't ask for any type of applause or anything like that, because we want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. So sometimes those type of distractions kind of silence some of the voices of the comments that people make, okay? So I'll call your name, and if you want to wait to the public hearing to talk about the DA, you could just wait until that time, okay? The first, and also during this time is when we recognize elected officials who are in the audience. We have our County Commissioner, Vern Herzink, in the back right there. We want to thank you for coming in today. We appreciate your service. Okay, the first person I have is Hunter Jack. You're gonna wait? Okay, thank you. What about Lanny Welch? Yep, you're gonna wait. Richard Jones? Okay, good. Carissa? You'll wait, good. Aaron Mittenberger? Okay, good, all right. Oh, you coming? Okay, all right, good.
Push the little people
There you
button.
go.
There you go. All right. So thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm actually a representative of the Main Street Committee today. We elected our chair, Mr. Matt Abbey, to come and speak to the council today, but he was unable to come. And since I am later on the agenda, I am attempting to step in. What I specifically want to talk about is pedestrian safety in that Main Street and downtown corridor. I think none of you would be surprised to know that there's been a lot of conversation about pedestrian safety and vehicle speed in our Main Street area. We have heard from a lot of folks who have really enjoyed, shop owners, business owners downtown, have heard from folks driving through that they've really enjoyed the changes that have been made downtown. We have also heard no small amount of comment about how dangerous it is to cross Main Street. Signs, I think the city has done a really great job of putting together a plan to address pedestrian crossing with signs and some other issues. The Main Street Advisory Committee, however, feels that it's super important that we increase our enforcement and potentially the fines that are levied for those who are speeding in that area. We just don't see any other way of changing the pattern of people driving through and really just plowing through that area. I can tell you that in the springtime, and thankfully it is now daylight savings time, so it's a little bit more springy. I like to sit out with a cup of coffee at Milagros and talk to people outside of that area. And it has been really challenging to do that with semis driving by, with people going super fast. I cross regularly from the south side to the north side, shopping downtown on the weekends and on Friday, nearly every week. And when I do it with my children, they get super nervous unless we come all the way down to the State and Main block where there is an actual traffic light. So on behalf of that Main Street Advisory Committee, I'm just here to urge council to please consider increasing enforcement and potentially increasing the fines, because we just don't feel like signs themselves have been effective in changing that behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we don't have any more comment cards, so I am going to close the citizen comment section.
Mayor, we have Zoom attendees
Zoom.
still.
Okay, we'll go to thank you all for the Zoom reminder.
Mhm.
Okay, Ms. Martinez, if you can give the Zoom participants instructions of how to raise their hands so that we can recognize them and give them an opportunity to speak.
Yes, sir. So if you're on the Zoom app and you want to make a citizen comment right now, you'll use the raise your hand feature in the bottom of your screen, or you can dial *9 and it'll raise your hand as well.
And and for those of you who are on Zoom, we're also going to give you an opportunity to speak during the hearing as well. So if you don't want to raise your hand right now and you want to speak during the public hearing about the recall of the DA, you can wait until that time. We will make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to speak tonight.
Okay, and Mayor, I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand to
Okay,
speak for citizen comment.
thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and close the citizen comment section at this time, and I'll turn it back over to staff just in case they want to make any comments at this time.
Mayor, I do not have any comments. We do have the item on your agenda tonight that Mr. Miltenberger spoke towards, which is an ordinance that would double the fines for the downtown area. And Rachel will cover that item later on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brooks. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, consent calendar A. Councilor Griego.
I'll make a motion, we approve consent calendar A.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Okay. If not, please start voting. Ms. Martinez?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the next item on the agenda. Presentation from an outside agency, annual update from outside funding partner, the Boys and Girls Club of the San Luis Valley.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, first of all, thank you for your continued and longstanding support of the Boys and Girls Club. I was able to be here recently to watch the Alamosa Library presentation. And mine is not going to be a PowerPoint presentation. I apologize for that in advance. As many of you know, the Boys and Girls Club has been in our community since 1992. And the reason that that club exists is because a group of young people who were in trouble, in probation, their probation officer brought them before this body and said, we got to do something different. In the words of my friend Jamie Dominguez, he said, hey, listen, if you don't give us something to do, we're going to end up dead. We're going to end up in jail. We're going to end up drug addicts and alcoholics. And council members like Mr. Griego made a sound investment in young people in this community 25 years ago to make sure that there is less of that now than there would have been otherwise. We have done a lot over the last few years. I think our partnership has deepened and we really appreciate the support of council. We used to specifically ask for money to support healthy eating and active lifestyles. Now that funding is more about our general operations. So I'll talk just a little bit about those general operations. So you'll see in the letter here that we really have three big things that the Boys and Girls Club has seen as a priority. And this is from going out into our community, listening to families, listening to schools, listening to folks who need some help and support. What they've told us, the first thing that they need is support for their young people and families by making sure that we have a healthy community and we're supporting community wellness. Number two, they said that we need some work-based pathways. We need employment certification. We need internships and job skills. We need places where we can get paid for doing work as young people. Open up that first bank account, learn about financial literacy. And the third thing that we heard from our community is that we need better support for our teens especially, right? People in that 12 to 18-year-old age range, they're able to make different decisions. They don't have to come to the Boys and Girls Club because they get dropped off by the bus. Many of them have the choice to be other places, and they need a place that feels like their own. To that end, we have worked really diligently, and I hope that council is really proud of the work of the staff and the board of directors for the Boys and Girls Club over this past year, because we've done some incredible things. The first I want to recognize is that in the second year of the COVID pandemic, we made major adaptations to our programs during that 2-year window, which hopefully we are seeing the other side of. During that 2-year window, we were closed for a sum total of 3 days. We were never closed by behavioral health for having an outbreak. We were able to remain open to serve young people and families through the duration of the pandemic. And that was really important to us. It was not easy, but it was important and necessary. We also provided over $100,000 of food to folks in the San Luis Valley. We prioritize buying that food from local sources, specifically the Local Foods Coalition and the Food Hub, which supports local growers here in the San Luis Valley, and the local distribution that also supports growers in the valley. I think if you flip over to the backside, the next thing that we're really proud of is our work to become truly a Boys and Girls Clubs of the San Luis Valley. We have been here before. There were lean times leading up to the last several years, but we were really excited to be able to open up 3 new sites. So the Boys and Girls Clubs now are supporting work in Antonito at South Conejos. We're in Blanca Fort Garland Community Center and Sierra Grande. And we're helping to support up at the Center Youth Viking Club as well. In addition to those 3 new school-based sites that were funded through 21st Century Community Learning Center funds through the Colorado Department of Education, we also were able to have board-designated funds to open up a teen center and youth-run arcade here in Alamosa. We're really excited to have that up. It's right on State and Main. If you haven't been, please stop by. I'll put a quarter at the desk for you so you can play some Centipede or Pac-Man. But that is a part of this bigger goal of making sure that young people in the San Luis Valley are prized for what they are best at, which is innovation and entrepreneurship, finding a way, hustling, making a living. And then we think if we partner with young people to learn those skills, they can go anywhere, but most importantly, they can stay here, right? The last thing that I want to talk about is some of our work that we did internally to build capacity. We work with the Energy Resource Center locally. We received the Nonprofit Energy Assistance Program grant. We redid all of our fixtures to be high efficiency. We've invested in infrastructure. We have now a human resources director. We have now a really phenomenal public resources and marketing person. I'm coming from a board meeting today, and our board just accepted a new position in compliance and executive assistant because we have to comply with so many new regulations and to be able to do it well. And the last thing I want to talk about on this letter is our collaborations. And the first thing that I highlight here is our collaboration with Alamosa County, Vern, and the city of Alamosa to be recognized as a Robert Wood Johnson Culture of Health Prize winner. 4 or 5 communities in the entire country received this, and we were big collaborative partners for that. We're also collaborating on the opioid abatement task force. We're collaborating in childcare, so we're working with the city for the planning and design of a best-in-class new childcare facility on our Boys and Girls Club campus to meet that need. We're talking about the RISE grant and other ways that we can do work for internships and work-based learning programs. Collaboration really is the name of the game. What I want to leave council with today is we believe in the idea that we are all better when we are all better, and we are better because of your support. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And before you leave, I'm
Yep.
quite sure a few council members have some comments. I'll start off with Councilor Hensley.
Alrighty, Aaron, you have done a phenomenal job, you and your team, the board, everybody. I'll start, obviously, you and I collaborate quite a bit together on a lot of these different grants, and your energy, your positive attitude, everything you do for the kids, for the community is phenomenal. I see it firsthand because obviously I have 2 granddaughters that love going to their club, that it's something they feel very proud of. And so I see that firsthand on a daily basis. And that how much the staff really cares for each one of those children. And each one is made to feel special. But everything you've done has been phenomenal. And I just truly congratulate you. I know it takes a lot of energy, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you, Councilor Hensley. Councilor Daniel, then followed by Councilor Griego.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Aaron, thank you so much. I so appreciate this report, but also the expansion back out into those communities. Antonito, I get to see some of those students on a regular basis and really excited about being there and being consistent and able to support them, and all of the work that you did in the pandemic for families. Even though we're not out of it yet, really, I think we're close. But all of that work and the teen center, I'm super impressed with the way things have come together and that people care and give. And then I wanted to give you a little bit of an opportunity to talk about the Youth of the Year, if you wanted to jump in and do that after Councilor Griego asks any questions.
Yes, Councilor
Thank you, Mayor.
Griego. Thank you.
Aaron, thank you very much. For the past 30 years, we've come a long ways. I remember back then, because I was there, when the group came to the city and the kids needed a place. And it sure is, I want to emphasize that the Boys and Girls Club is for all kids, okay? Sometimes there's this misnomer out there that says it's for bad kids. No, it's for everybody. And I think that when you bring kids together at that age and you teach them to learn the different cultures and stuff, it makes them better. It makes our community a better community. But thanks to past directors that you took some place of some guys back then that did a great job. Board of directors, there's a group that comes together and helps fundraise, and that tireless hours, I was there for a lot of hours, those people like that, and then the community came together as partners. These are our future. These kids are our future. And for them to come together and fight for something like this, incredible. Back then, what the city did was they said, okay, we're going to give you a third of the money. You match it. And if you don't match it, you don't get it. Well, they matched it. They went out there and they beat the bushes and they got people involved in what it is today, and the beautiful building I know it continuously needs to repairs and stuff like that. But it's been something that I think that I'm proud, because I've worked with a lot of different board of directors, a lot of directors there that have done their job, and it's turned out to be a great deal. And that's why the city continues to fund this, because I think it's so important that we continue funding this and making sure that our future, our kids, our future, one day they're going to sit up here and do what we're doing. So
You bet.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Griego. Counselor Vito, did you have it? Okay, we're gonna let you say something about the Youth of the Year Award.
Yeah, that was a nice transition. Thank you, Counselor Daniel. So the Youth of the Award, the Youth of the Year is an event. We do 2 events a year where we ask our community to come out and support. The Youth of the Year event is probably my favorite one because it's all about heart. So we select one outstanding young person who gets up and shares a little bit about their life and their experience. It's a breakfast, so we get people in at 7 in the morning. We get you out by 7:45. So, you should be running out of that parking lot at 7:50 to make it to your 8 a.m. job. It's a really heartwarming event. It's April 19th. It'll be at the Boys and Girls Clubs. We will have a table for City Council and for the county. So we would love to see all of you at the event.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. And I too would like to thank you for the work that you and your staff do every day, inside out. Every time I go over there, your staff are really active and paying attention to the kids and their needs. And you give them the tools that they need to be successful. And that's really impressive. The Teen Center and Arcade is a very nice facility. And I often hear kids say, there's nothing to do around here in Alamosa. They used to be able to say that, but they can't say that now because that youth center and arcade is amazing. And I had fun playing Pac-Man there too, so we're good. So I encourage you to continue up the great work that you are doing, and we'll see you on the 19th.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Take care. Okay. So this is the part of the agenda that we decided to, under business brought forward by city staff. We're going to move item 3 up to this part right here. We're going to allow our city manager, and I believe the chief is on Zoom as well, to start the conversation. Council, I ask that we just allow them to go through their presentation, whatever presentation they have prepared tonight, and then we'll open up the hearing from there, and then turn it back over to council, okay? All right, Ms. Brooks, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, Chief Anderson is on Zoom tonight to join in this presentation. As you know, the chief and I provided a pretty extensive overview of the concerns we had related to District Attorney Alonzo Payne at our last City Council meeting on March 2nd. Tonight, we are going to make that a little bit abbreviated, but some of it is going to be very much the same in case someone wasn't able to see that, so they can best understand what council is considering tonight. Additionally, we have information almost coming to us daily on other situations, and so we have incorporated some new information as well. For those who want to see that presentation from March 2nd, or some of the documents that we are relying on, we have created a web page off of the city's website at cityofalamosa.org/DA-concerns/. That is where we are putting all of the information for the public to be able to view. So as we started the last meeting, we indicated that since the DA was sworn in on January 12th, 2021, that we had many concerns. We had concerns related to the professionalism of the office, the violations of the Victim Rights Act, the unprecedented use of sweetheart deals for very serious crimes, the lack of response in carrying out regular duties and simply communicating as a community partner, and really the important one for us, the risk to our law enforcement officers for every interaction they need to have with these emboldened criminals. However, as I indicated, we are getting information sent to us a lot, and this is something that's evolving. We have new concerns because of that. A new set of concerns we have is about retaliatory behavior and the abuse of power following the felony charges that the DA Payne has filed against former DA Willett. We also had to wonder how he has time to process that when he can't process our warrants. The second concern that we have is the lack of prosecution for animal cruelty cases that I will share some information on here in a bit. Similar to the last meeting, I want to make it clear that we made several attempts to meet with the district attorney in order to express our concerns and see if we could make some changes. Those efforts were fruitless, and he has made it clear that he does not believe jail is an appropriate consequence for any level of crime. We also shared with the district attorney that we have very similar philosophical beliefs when it comes to low-level offenses. We have started the LEAD program. We're getting ready to start the co-responder program. We have a long-standing diversion program, and City Council decriminalized many of the municipal court offenses. The areas we have a strong difference is on the higher level of offenses.
So I want to share with you a few samples of plea deals that highlight the threat to our community. Our police department has conducted over 40 narcotic operations in the past 9 months. Not one of these cases has resulted in a trial. They have all been dismissed or pled to less serious offenses with very minimal jail time. These operations include significant amounts of seized drugs, money, and weapons. Richard Newton, suspect. Officers made contact in a parking lot in Alamosa for an active warrant. Mr. Newton refused to exit his vehicle and accelerated, dragging a Colorado State Patrol trooper who was backing up one of my officers through the parking lot, causing injury to that state trooper. We are lucky it was not more serious. Under the plea deal, he received a deferred sentence. Mr. Newton received a deferred sentence for 36 months and 60 hours of community service. Trey Howell and April Barron's murder of a 16-month-old baby who had trauma to the brain due to being smashed into a bedroom door. Howell pled to accessory to crime and got 72 months deferred sentence with terms and conditions of probation. Barron's pled to child abuse, negligently causing serious bodily injury attempt, and received 2 years community corrections and 369 days credit for time served.
So as I indicated before, since the March 2nd meeting, almost daily we are uncovering new examples of crazy dismissals and plea deals. In all honesty, our community partners from across the valley are bringing information to us because they are desperate for this information to be brought out to the public. It's clear that this is not just a problem for Alamosa. This is a problem for the entire valley. And as I indicated when we first started talking tonight, we have a new category, which is a lack of prosecution related to animal cruelty. I am going to share a document, but I do want to provide a warning that the pictures might be disturbing. Is it sharing yet? There we go. So we have a few cases that have been shared with us, and the first one is about an abandoned horse. The Colorado Humane Society was called about a dead horse in Castilla County. When they arrived, they found a horse tied to a tree, left for dead, and it had been there for several months. Upon questioning, the owner admitted to leaving the horse there. After riding the horse down the mountain, neglected and emaciated in chest-deep snow, when the horse would not go any further, the owner finally gave up and tied it to the tree to die. This was not the owner's first experience with animal neglect. The Castilla County Sheriff's Office wanted to press animal cruelty and neglect charges and was working with DA Willett on such things. However, when Payne was elected and the case became his, he dropped all charges. Another example is called Casper the Dog. This is in relation to a case that occurred in Conejos, where the Conejos County Sheriff contacted CHS after receiving a call that a boxer mix had been stuck in a snare trap. The sheriff found the mutilated dog whose body was almost severed in half. He instructed the owner to seek veterinary treatment. After several more visits, they found that the owner had not sought veterinary treatment and that the snare was still embedded around his stomach. There were no charges pressed for this situation. And then we have the situation with the dogs. This occurred of the threat, or the case was a puppy mill with neglected fighting dogs in Costilla County. A sheriff and CHS agent visited the property. They also have video evidence of that visit. They could see several injured and neglected dogs. And for 7 intense hours, the teams rescued starving dogs, injured and sick dogs, aggressive dogs, dogs with no socialization, and dogs in filthy metal cages that were too small in the hot summer heat. They also found 2 deceased dogs on the property. Altogether, they rescued 103 dogs. The owner was charged with 107 felony counts and 1 misdemeanor, including counts of animal cruelty, a count of theft, count for cyber crimes, and a count for violation of probation. DA Payne shockingly decided to drop all charges without explanation, and the case was dismissed. Obviously, as we talk about our concerns related to the district attorney, we need to also talk about the violations of the Victim Rights Act. As of February 9th, the Colorado Crime Victim Advisory Board had received 8 complaints under the VRA. The first 4, for the first time ever, were forwarded to the governor because they found the DA's office was non-compliant. The remaining 4, which came in later, since then, on February 25th, the subcommittee voted that it was substantiated and forwarded those to the Colorado Crime Victim Advisory Board as well. The complaints include not being treated with fairness, respect, and dignity, lack of information related to plea deals and hearings, requests for information being simply ignored, refusals to meet with the victims, and explosive and confrontational behavior.
In addition to these areas, we've also found the office to be non-responsive to communication efforts, dismissive and combative during meetings, and lacking in timely performance of duties. For example, in December, it was brought to my attention that over 20 warrants had been processed, which means 20 different cases with victims that sat on the DA's desk without action for weeks and sometimes longer. These included domestic violence cases, 3rd-degree assaults, 2nd-degree assaults, 2nd-degree forgeries, thefts, secondary burglaries, and felony menacing cases. Such a delay can have serious consequences. As discussed last time, OMS student Jaden Cruz had been bullied at school, and on Friday, October 1st of 2021, he was assaulted by other students. The Alamosa Police Department had the charges to the DA's office that following Monday. The charges sat without action on the DA's desk. On December 21st of 2021, unfortunately, Jaden tragically took his own life. His guardians assert that without that abandonment by the DA's office, Jaden would not have killed himself.
We want to be clear that the excuses and the narrative provided by the district attorney are not relevant, and they do not explain away the actions or lack of actions of his office. The district attorney has said that his office is underfunded and suffers from a big workload. But for the last decade, the district attorney's office has been underfunded, and they have still pursued jail time for more serious crimes. The district attorney has also indicated that staff changes should address the concerns related to the VRA violations. However, these violations have been occurring for over a year. They involve more than just one attorney, including the district attorney himself, and they speak directly to his leadership of the office. I want to be clear that per the Colorado Rules of Professional Conduct, supervising attorneys, such as the DA, are responsible for the conduct of their subordinate attorneys. I also anticipate that the district attorney will attempt to claim that dissatisfaction is based on political differences, i.e. a Democrat versus Republican platform. We know that council represents both political, and I would say 3 political platforms, which is Democrat, Republican, and Independent. And as I've talked to community partners, these concerns cross both platforms. And I've already shared the similarities we have from a philosophical perspective on lower level offenses.
Through Mr. DA Payne's efforts to avoid jail sentences, there's been an increase in the use of the 12th Judicial District Probation Office for more serious offenses. To learn more, I met with the Chief Probation Officer, Bill Goudelet. None of the certified POs carry a sidearm, and as of lately, the new clients being referred to the probation office are too high risk, and it is dangerous for the probation officers who are not equipped, thus putting the lives of the officers more at risk. One might ask, if they're too dangerous for probation officers, then why are the cases being pled down and not utilizing jail?
When we first began looking into this, one of the questions is, what is the role of the judges? And to be honest, the district attorney has tried to dodge his accountability by saying it's okay for these plea deals and dismissals because the judges are approving it. What we've learned is that it's more complicated than that. For a dismissal, all the prosecutor has to show is that there is a legal reason for the dismissal, which more often than not is they cannot prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, or the victim was not cooperating. Since judges do not have access to the evidence, nor are they privy to any communication with the victims, they have to rely on the word of the prosecutor. It's also similar for the plea deals. We have learned that there may be multiple instances where the district attorney's office has told the court that they have communicated with the victim when in fact they have not. And then just today, we received information about a citation for contempt that Eric will cover here briefly.
Yes, counsel. Last week, citation for contempt was filed in Rio Grande County District Court by Judge Amanda Hopkins against DA Payne. Now, a citation for contempt is like a complaint or a pleading, so it's not been proven, but the allegation has been made by Judge Hopkins that DA Payne lied in court to her concerning a reason for dismissal, and in particular had indicated that a case was being dismissed because the victim didn't want to testify. And it turns out when the victim's advocate at the sheriff's office saw the dismissal and called up the court clerk wondering what the heck was going on, that was just not true. And so the citation for contempt has issued. The district attorney, I think, has gained a reputation in the judiciary for not being reliably truthful, which is one of the most serious violations of the rules of professional conduct that an attorney can engage in.
Is it?
I think
the
we're
chief-
back to Chief Anderson.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks. In District Attorney Payne's own words, overzealous and unwarranted prosecutions have put such a strain on our criminal justice system that it is at a breaking point. I would argue that applying the oversimplified "don't put them in jail" philosophy to all levels of crime is simply irresponsible and contrary to the role of the prosecutor. There is a difference between someone who is shoplifting because of an underlying substance use condition and someone who is distributing pounds of drugs with assault weapons and thousands of dollars in drug money. There is a difference between low-level offenses and murder. There is a difference between low-level offenses and murder. I want you to understand that. Let me put that out there. The inappropriate plea deals have left victims feeling helpless and often re-victimized, and have sent a clear message to those considering breaking the law that the San Luis Valley is a safe haven for criminals. Our officers have literally had arrestees laugh as they're being handcuffed, and I've had to watch this lately as the chief, which is concerning. We put our officers' lives at risk every time they have to make an entry on a narcotic operation or any other critical incident. Our neighborhoods and residents are at risk when criminals are allowed to avoid jail time and walk around our community. Quite honestly, I'm the one that gets these phone calls about this, and I'm running out of responses. I don't know what else to tell them. We're doing what we can. The comments I hear now from residents is at least we have a day of no fear. These are our victims whose voices are being ignored, Victims I made a pledge to protect and serve over 20 years ago.
As we shared at the last council meeting, there is a current movement to petition for a recall election. To that point, council has 2 items before you on your agenda tonight. You have the public hearing and second reading for Ordinance 5-2022. This is seen as the umbrella ordinance that allows council to provide funds for local elections. We are changing that language to allow recall efforts to be included as the proper use for those funds. The expenditures are limited to recall elections, not all types of elections. Also, as the city attorney explained before, since this is a valley-wide issue and not necessarily just a local issue, the city can participate up to the point that the Secretary of State certifies the signatures on the petitions as valid. The other item that is before City Council tonight is Resolution 6-2022. So you have your umbrella of an ordinance, and then under that is the resolution that actually authorizes resources for this specific recall election. During the last meeting, there were some questions about whether or not a public entity should participate in a recall election. And I think a little bit more information would help clarify this. The city does not necessarily anticipate spending an actual $10,000. That maximum amount is related not only to the use of physical money, but also the value of staff time and other city resources. So for example, last Saturday, the Recall Pain Group held a meeting and it was open to the public. City staff cannot attend something like that in order to share information and find out what's going on until we are authorized per Resolution 6-2022. That's a use of city resources that, if this resolution is passed, allows city staff to participate in those types of activities. Some have wondered if it's an appropriate use of public funds for this effort. And to that, I have some information as well. The first point is just simple math. Every narcotic operation that we conduct, it costs between $1,500 to $2,000. Since we've conducted over 40, that's $80,000 on narcotic operations. If we could have prevented just half of these because the perpetrators were in jail, we could have saved the city $40,000, or 4 times the $10,000 that this resolution is authorizing. My other point, though, is there's no value we can place on the lives of our officers who have been risking their lives every time they enter these situations. The second point I want to make is that the city council, city staff, and especially our police department are charged to protect our residents. Alonzo Payne, as the district attorney, is a direct threat to the safety of our residents. And finally, my last point, if this is a prudent use of public funds, our law enforcement, our own employees who we have a responsibility for, risk their lives when they interact with these criminals. And under this district attorney, their lives are more at risk. And with this, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you for a public hearing.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Brooks, Chief Anderson, and Mr. Sweetsour. Thank you so very much. At this time, we're going to open up a public hearing in the second reading for ordinance number 5-2022, and ordinance amending section 5-42 of the Local Fair Campaign Practices Act to permit expenditure on non-municipal recall elections under the same circumstances as non-municipal ballot issues, and resolution number 6-2022, authorizing expenditure of city funds on a recall petition. So we're going to start off as we open up this public hearing for the audience who are here live tonight. And then after that, we're going to allow the participants who are participating on Zoom who would like to speak. Once we leave the live audience, we won't be coming back. So we're going to ask that all of you who would like to speak come up to the podium and start speaking. for those of you who weren't here when I made earlier announcements, there's a 3-minute timer that we're gonna have so we can allow everybody an opportunity to speak. If you're still speaking at the 3-minute mark, when the timer goes off, I will politely ask you to end your conversations at that time. The other thing that we would like to make mention during our public hearings, we don't allow all of the interruptions. We don't allow the clapping and any such distractions, because we would like for everyone's voice to be heard and for everyone to be able to participate without any interruptions so that they won't lose their frame of thought, okay? So I have comment cards from those of you who signed earlier who wanted to make comments. I could call your names off of here, or if you all just want to line up and start coming up and making your comments, you're more than welcome to do that. Everyone will get an opportunity to speak tonight. And those who are on the Zoom, you will get an opportunity to speak as well. So whoever feels comfortable coming up here first, feel free to come up to the mic.
I wanted to start off by thanking you again for looking into and researching the situation that's facing our valley with the DA. DA Payne's actions speak volumes, as do his words spoken on an episode of Dateline about the case involving the death of Amy Carlson, where DA Payne stated, "Not all matters are meant to be handled in the judicial system, and sometimes you just have to let people be people." While I don't fully disagree with these statements, I do feel DA Payne has used this view to the extreme, and in all cases brought before him. I believe in second chances. However, DA Payne has chosen to not grow with the chances he has been given. DA Payne states he supports mental health reform for criminals, while referring to victims with mental health disorders resulting from the crimes committed against them as hysterical. DA Payne's lack of respect for the judicial system has already affected many of our citizens, including children and law enforcement. Allowing DA Payne to stay in office will only cause more citizens to become victims. I have heard the excuse of staffing shortages, lack of funding, and case overload. And while these might be correct, would any of those have stopped DA Payne from hanging up on, refusing to communicate with, or yelling at victims? I don't think any of these excuses are the real issue in this case. None of the above are needed to treat people with dignity and respect. Let's stop empowering our criminals and start empowering our law enforcement and our victims of crimes by hearing their cries for help. Please help save our valley from this cycle of destruction and vote in favor for assisting the recall. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, the clerk and I both know that that was Lonnie Welch, but if people could identify themselves when they speak, that would be great. No,
Okay.
no problem.
No problem. It's all good. Okay. Just please identify yourself when you come up to the podium. Thank you.
I am Carissa Rail. So I have a question more than, because he was more like family than a friend, and his murderer just got all the charges dropped today. He was murdered in another really good friend of mine's house. And they did not find him a victim, but he was also shot at. I'm just wondering if there is going to be a way to bring these charges back.
So,
If,
ma'am, during this time of we don't go back and forth with answering questions, but if you pose a question, our city attorney or our city manager at the end of the public hearing will address those comments, okay? But we won't go back and forth right now.
okay.
Okay.
I do know today though, at the judge said that he was making way more, having the cases out than he was having trial dates. And I just feel like he's wrong for a lot of what he is doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Hunter Jack. I'm a fifth generation Valley native. I graduated from high school here in Alamosa and moved away for a few years before I decided to come back and raise my family here. My wife and I have two kids, a 3-year-old little girl and a 6-year-old little girl. I want to echo one of the statements that one of the council members made at the last meeting, that with what I've seen over the course of the last year, I'm not sure that I made the right decision in doing that. We live 3 blocks away from one of the houses that's been raided multiple times. I'm a good family friend of 2 of the victims that have been, spoken about in this meeting and the last. It's evident that the police officers, the sheriff's officers here in Alamosa, in the valley as a whole, are doing absolutely everything that they can to try to make this community a better place. And we've seen bigger busts, bigger operations than I think we've ever seen in the valley to try to make something good happen here. What's also evidence is that Alonzo Payne is absolutely not doing his job. He is no better than the criminals that he's continuing to let plea down and to let off and to continue to walk our streets. He's no better than them. The money that the council is talking about spending is the money of everyone in this room tonight, and that was here in the last meeting, and the entire community that's come together to show, their disdain for what he's doing. And it's evident that they want that spent on this, on us doing everything we can to make a difference. Councilmember Griego, you said in the last meeting that some of the people you represent have said that they don't want their tax dollars going to this. I guess I've just yet to see or hear from anyone who doesn't want that to happen. We've heard that $10,000 in comparison to the amount of money spent in these operations, you think about 4 or 5 times one house has had to go back and be raided. That's the money right there. That's the $10,000. What I also heard in the last meeting was that it's the people who voted for him's responsibility to get him out of office. I feel like that's everything we're seeing here. That's everything we've seen in the last meeting. That's everything that we've seen by the recall effort. It's a community that's coming together, and a police force that's coming together, and they're at their wits' end. They have nothing else to do but to come to you and ask for your support in this. I appreciate all of your time. I hope that at the end of this, you'll all be on the same page and all see that this is the best possible thing that you can do to help support our valley and our community. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the audience? Okay, thank you.
How y'all doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Good to see everybody.
See you.
I think we got a bigger problem than Mr. Payne. I think it's a waste. I mean, I done heard from the community too about the recall. I think it's all political. From let's get rid of him and let's bring the old guy back. That's on the news, the TV, and everything else. I've been doing a little research for the last year, just on the community as a whole. I think we lost faith in the city law enforcement, if you just want to be honest about the whole thing. I think Chief Anderson, people feel like he's not doing his job. So let's throw out everybody let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. If we're gonna get rid of the DA, let's get rid of the chief of police. Let's clean house and make the whole community better. Sometimes you have to start over for the people in the community, you know? Because once the community lose the faith in law enforcement, like he said, people get arrested, they laugh at the police, you know, because they think the whole police department is a joke. I mean, I see police officers coming through town, they on their cell phone, they speeding down First Street. I live on First Street. They running 50 miles an hour on their cell phone. But if I do it, I get pulled over and get a ticket. You know, I was coming back from Pueblo one day. I went into the office and told them one of the officers on I-25 running over 100. I'm running 85 and he passed me and came up this valley screaming. And I called Highway Patrolman. They told me to come in and sign a summons. But I went to the police station and told them, you got an officer that was coming up I-25 and 160 flying. I never heard nothing about it. The guy said, oh, we'll talk to him. That's the problem, you know? I mean, the community done lost a lot of faith in the law enforcement of the community. I got a service truck that done been broken in 10 times. I don't even waste my time calling the police because I know they're not gonna do anything. So that's all, but like I said, let's clean house. I mean, if Mr. Payne not doing his job, and I don't know the whole situation, I don't care about the whole situation. I mean, I know you got victims and people need to be taken care of if somebody get murdered. But the police need to bring the best evidence to any DA. Now, I mean, if they doing all these buses, I mean, if you got good evidence, you got to try the case. But if they doing something nefarious, they need to be investigated. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm from San Luis. I was here a couple weeks ago at the other meeting. I just come to let you guys know that today they dismissed the charges against this guy that committed the crime, that I think committed the crime. And they kind of told me that I wasn't a victim, but I don't understand how I'm not a victim when he shot at us in my house. I mean, my friend right here got shot. He still has a piece of shrapnel in his back. I got hit in the head. And I'm not a victim. I don't get it. They threw it out. The judge says that I wasn't a victim. I don't know how it works because I'm not familiar with the system and stuff. But to me, the DA didn't even show up at court today. He sent somebody else to put this person out, you know, to let him go free, you know, and that's not fair to me. It's not fair to him. In the same, at the same token, you know, it's very wrong the way I see that they're working. I've known Alonso a long time because I grew up with him, and as a person, I get along with him, but I don't agree with what he's doing as a DA, you know, and I don't agree with what he's doing to people here or over there or anywhere else in the valley, you know. So I'm sorry to say to Alonso, but he needs to either back down or do his job, you know, because there's people getting away with murder. And what are we supposed to do? This guy's walking the streets now today free. What am I supposed to do? You know, I don't want to retaliate, but I'm not going to let nobody come after me. I don't know what the guy's capable of. I feel this victim is not the first one that he's killed. But I don't know. Just kind of lost, but that's all I can say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mario de Santiago. I was involved in the case with Richard Jones here. Case concerning Chris Lopez murder. I was in the house with him. I gave a statement to the police. We both did. Police only talked to me one time. And come to find out through Richard that we weren't victims, we were witnesses. but we had nothing valid for the case because we weren't victims. And he claimed that his brother, because he lost a sibling, was the victim and not us. Today, the case with Chris Lopez was dropped, all charges dropped. And I feel no justice, I feel scared in the community because of this. And the district attorney has done nothing. He spoke to me on the street the morning after the murder, told me to go get some mental help. And that was about all he told me. That's all he said to me. He didn't say nothing else. Nothing has been done. I haven't been contacted. I went and gave my statement. The statement's still on record, I believe. If not, it's gone, but they said there wasn't enough evidence. And I was an eyewitness. I was a witness to the plaintiff saying he was going to kill Richard Jones, stating he was going to go get a rifle, come back and shoot him. He shot through a closed door, couldn't see inside the house. He shot from the street the second time to a closed window, blinds closed, recklessly. Me and Jones and the victim were in the house, and I have a shrapnel in my back still. I had somebody check it and see if it was still there last night, still there. And I'm not a victim. I don't understand this. I believe Mr. Payne is not doing his job, and he's treating us like we did something wrong by not doing anything. Our voices are not even heard in our own community, our own county, in Costilla County. The police came and got us a second time to see if about our statements. I was told by the Sheriff Danny Sanchez that he didn't want me to make another statement. That way I don't contradict myself. And I'm like, why can't I give a statement? I go, I know exactly what happened. I still remember, it's fresh in my head. Nothing was done. No statement taken, nothing. Like it didn't matter. And we matter. Our community matters, this community matters, we all matter. We're being treated like we don't matter. And I find it hard to see that this doesn't go through with recalling Payne because of his incompetence. And I still feel like a victim, but my voice is not heard. I haven't had a day in court. The guy had he told me I wasn't a victim at all. I told him I have a piece of shrapnel on my back. They told me go to the clinic and get it taken out. That's all he said. Didn't say bring it in for evidence, didn't say nothing like that. So therefore I left it in.
Okay, you've reached your 3 minutes, but thank you so very much. We
Thank you
appreciate
very
it. Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the audience who would like to make any comments at this time?
Hi, I'm Terry Hammond, and I just wanted to make one quick comment to Councilman Griego. You mentioned that the voters put Alonzo Payne in office. I just want to remind you that it is voters who sign the recall petitions. You have to be a registered voter to sign that petition, so it will be the voters taking him out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anyone else in the audience who would like to make any comments at this time? If so, please come up to the podium, because once we leave the audience, we won't be coming back for additional comments. We're going to go to the Zoom participants, give them an opportunity to speak, and then we're going to turn this back over to staff and council for further discussion. And we won't be having any other audience participation in the hearing. So anyone else, if you feel like coming up to the podium, please do so at this time. And if we don't see anyone come up, we're going to go to the Zoom participants. Okay. All righty. So let's go ahead and go to the Zoom participants. And Ms. Martinez, if you could please give them instructions of how to raise their hand so that we can recognize them and give them an opportunity to speak.
Yes, sir. If you're on the Zoom app and you want to speak right now, use the raise your hand feature in the bottom of your screen and it'll raise your hand. If you're on a telephone, you'll dial *9 to use that feature.
Okay.
I've seen a few.
I'll go with the order that I see right now. Sometimes these orders change, Mrs. Martinez, so if they change on me, let me know. But I'll start off with John Luthman.
It's John. It's John Lumen. My screen just went blank. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, John.
Okay. I'm one of the listed victims on the one of the initial 4 VRA complaints. I wanted to add to what Terry said, that when the voters elected Payne, they were not given an option. So it's not like he had competition when he was on the general election. Second off, I'd like to inform especially the city attorney that this last Monday, I spoke with the Attorney Regulation Council under the Supreme Court under my complaint against Reigns 22-79. So I wanted to let you know that that is being pursued, and with what you had said previously about Payne being responsible for those underneath, it is a joint complaint with 22-80 with that same department. I also wanted to add that tomorrow I get to go to the court in Saguache County because my domestic abuser has someone else seeking to have a temporary restraining order put permanent against him. And I am certain many people in the audience are aware that what this likely means, and there are no charges pressed against him for whatever incident charged that. This is after Reigns had lied in court to get the case against my abuser dismissed. So there's repeat offenders in the domestic violence that seem to be getting away with it under Payne as well. I wanted to make sure you're aware of that. And thank you. My time's up.
Thank you. Shamar Cole. Shamir.
Hello,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Shamir Cole. I am an attorney in the St. Louis Valley. I'm recently barred. I've only been practicing for about 1.5 years now. And, I had the unfortunate luck of having to start my career in criminal defense while Alonso Payne is the district attorney. I think the very first conversation that I had with him, I couldn't help myself and I had to tell him how irresponsible I thought he was. And it's not about politics because I read the things that he wrote in his campaign about his philosophy, and I agree with a lot of it. But the way that he's carried out those are just contrarian, I would describe him as, where, if you tell him that the sky is up, he'll say it's down. If you say the grass is green, he'll say it's blue. And, I really feel sorry for everyone who's had to deal with him. I stand by my original opinion of him. I think he's irresponsible, and I think that he does not have the maturity to continue in that very important role. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Up next, we have Callie.
So I was very interested to hear what Heather had to say about what resources can be used, because I think we're here tonight to actually vote on whether we want to use city resources or taxpayer dollars. I think it's really important for us to pass using the taxpayer dollars, the city resources, in order to be able to allow the staff to participate in this. Otherwise, we are limiting the recall to being informed with a certain amount of anecdotal evidence, which can be very difficult for the common person, the common voter to research. And so allowing staff to go in and inform people of the egregious behavior is giving us that research ability in a much more, well, it's an easier way, and it's taxpayer money anyway, and we're paying basically for those staff to inform us of what's going on. So that's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Up next, we have Lisa. Okay, Lisa, you could start. Lisa, it doesn't look like you're muted, but you could try to talk if you would like to at this time. So Lisa, what we're going to do is we'll go to the next person and then we'll come back to you and give you an opportunity. It seems like you're having some technical issues on your end, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and go to Vanessa.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, yes, is this Vanessa? Go ahead,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Vanessa Romero. I spoke last meeting. And I just want to say a couple of things. I'm speaking up for all victims, not only myself. I am absolutely appalled with how victims have been treated under this DA. I have experienced it for myself, and I've heard from many others who have been victimized by the DA. Let me say that again, victimized by the district attorney. The DA and other attorneys under him have lied and been disrespectful on countless occasions. After several months of hearings in my abuser's case, which was clearly a domestic violence case, one of the victim advocates had the audacity to ask if I was in an intimate relationship when I was married. And I mean, there's several other examples, but my final thought is, I would urge council to support this recall. We need to get Alonzo Payne out of here for the safety of all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna go back to Lisa again. Lisa, if you could unmute yourself, because it looks like you're muted from our perspective. Lisa, we see that you're still muted. Okay, so it looks like she's having technical difficulties, and we would like to make sure that this is going to be the last call for everybody on Zoom. If you would like to make a comment, this will be that time for you to raise your hand and make your comments. If we're not able to see any other hands, or if we don't see any other hands here shortly, within the next few seconds, we are going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Okay, Lisa, it looks like you're unmuted, so go ahead and start. Okay, all right, so for the sake of time, we've given Lisa several opportunities, but I don't know what the problem is on the technical side. Ms. Martinez, looks like she's unmuted. Lisa, you can try one more time. If not, we're going to have to move on. All right, so we tried. All right, so at this time, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for comments. I will recognize each one of you as I see your mic lit up. I do ask that you give each person an opportunity to speak. And we'll start off with the first person, Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
I'm not going to repeat everything that I said the last time, but I do want to say thank you to everyone who's spoken up and shared their opinions with us. I do believe that our law enforcement has been able to present information to the DA that, in my opinion, based on what we've seen from our staff, has not been used appropriately. And so Respectfully, I disagree with the gentleman who spoke earlier about a whole cleaning house. I think our law enforcement, especially within the city of Alamosa, has worked to increase their activity to build trust among the community. And what has happened is when they have brought those cases forward, they've not been prosecuted appropriately. And so that is my opinion on that. I also believe that the DA's position, regardless of who Mr. Payne is or isn't, right? This is not a personal attack on him specifically, but what the district attorney's office is supposed to do. It is an elected position in our community, and our job as people within this community and as other elected officials is to hold one another accountable. And that is an expectation I have of us as each other, and it is an expectation I have of other elected officials, and that we can come to the table and have conversations. Sadly, we've been unable to have those conversations with our current district attorney, and I am struggling very much because I believe that they are one of the key stakeholders in our criminal justice system, and it has been sadly abused and misused on a philosophy that is not bearing witness what he said his philosophy was. We've talked about that philosophy a lot. All of my fellow counselors understand that I am, the city is on board with this, that I am not for jailing people who do not deserve to be jailed, who have other challenges, but there are things happening in our community that deserve to have higher accountability than what we've been able to give. And that is unacceptable to me, and we need to hold our district attorney's office accountable. Seeing the additional concerns that have come up since our last meeting, hearing other things that have happened, learning what we've learned today, I'm 100% in support of both Ordinance 5/2022, which allows us to amend our Fair Campaign Practices Act, as well as Resolution 6/2022 that allows us to expend city funds, and reminding everyone that it is not about straight up cash, but also staff time. If we do not pass these ballots, we cannot participate in any of these conversations or ask our staff to. And I do not think that would be fair to our community, let alone the citizens of the San Luis Valley.
Thank you, Counselor Daniel. Up next is Counselor Hensley, followed by Counselor Griego, followed by Counselor Vio.
So I also won't repeat everything from last time, and I 100% agree with what Counselor Daniel said. And what I'll add to that is the many people who have been re-victimized, the many people who have had to deal with mental health issues above and beyond what they're had to deal with as a victim, but because they're not getting the support from the people they expect the support from. Every one of these is one too many in our community. One death is one death too many. How many more do we have to put up with? I look at it here is my responsibility is to protect and to stand by and to support our community, to support our employees, everybody who's in the city and the county. And without a doubt, 100% with everything that's been said, I support both of these resolutions over 100%.
Thank you, Counselor Hensley. Counselor Griego, followed by Counselor Vio.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been quite an emotional issue, and I appreciate the people who have come here, and I appreciate the comments. When this is America, we can disagree and talk about it. But there's a process put together, and I admire the process of the recall. Recall is a process where if we don't like what an elected official is doing, that the people put in there, we could take him out. And you're right. Those people that want to take him out are going to sign that recall petition. But it's the people that take him out. It's the people that put him in there. And somebody made the comment that he didn't have somebody run against him. Well, that was a process. Somebody could have ran against him. That's what the evidence that's been put together, presented here today is probably a lot of evidence that would probably recall him. But there's a process, and anytime government gets involved, and starts putting monies, sure, you had good examples of how much money we spend, and we'll continue spending that money to prevent crime in our community. But it's not right for us as a government, and we represent over 9,000 people here, okay? We represent, and when I say we got elected at-large people and people in wards, but yet we represent over 9,000 people here, you know? And sure, I have gotten calls of people saying that, yeah, he should be recalled. But the part about using taxpayers' money, they don't agree on. You know, and I too, you know, like I said, you know, for me, it's been a tough deal because, you know, are we representing all the people here? I really appreciate the people that are vocal and are coming forward, and there's a lot of people out there that will probably go and join. There should be a way for our staff, if they want to get involved and go out there, let them get involved in it. But to take dollars and stuff of people that also that probably don't agree with some of the stuff is wrong, I think, you know. Like I said, my heart goes out. The stuff that's been provided, you know, the evidence from our staff and from you, the people, you know, it's hard. It's a hard deal, you know, and I agree, you know, it's a deal that he probably will get recalled if people unite and go for it. But I'm going to stand behind it. I'm not for putting one penny into this recall, you know. If all of us want to get in line and take our wallets out and start giving out money for recall, that's one option, and that's the way it should be, you know. But for us to take that money and do it, he's done wrong, you know. There's a process, and a lot of us don't understand the process on how he comes up with some of these plea bargains, you know. There's a lot of neighbors that have called me and said, hey, we got drugs right next door to us. People coming in and out. The police don't do nothing. I says, the police can't go over there and knock the door down and enter the house. We need to get evidence enough. Keep calling until we can get it. And sure enough, there's been over 40 people that have gotten arrested for that. So there is a process, and if we start setting an example, another thing I question is the ordinance it's 10,000 per recall. You know, so for example, the people can use this against us too, right? One day, if they want to recall us all, they can use this ordinance and say, okay, we expect we can use $70,000 to recall council. Is that true, Eric, or how does that work? Because this can be, this last deal with the downtown, there was a lot of people talking about recall. And if this is going to set it up where they could come to council and say, okay, we want to use that money to recall the council, is that possible? Is that right? Or how does that work?
Well, they could say that.
Before you answer that, like I said, I'm not against the recall. I admire you people for doing it, you know, and when if we mess up here, recall us. We don't do our job, and if the evidence that's been put together in front of us today shows he's not doing his job, you know. So it's something that I said, I'm not against the recall, you know. It's just there's procedures set in our country to how it works, and then if we're trying as a city to change that is wrong, I think. Go ahead, Eric, I'm sorry.
So somebody could come up to council and try to convince council to pass a resolution to recall all of itself or any one of its members. And if they were successful in, well, let me back up. The answer to that is no, because it's only for non-local elections. So that's the first cut. But even on non-local elections, it's council that decides through a resolution, in this case, resolution 6, whether or not to spend staff time and money on any particular recall issue.
So nobody can use ordinance number 5. I'm not talking about the resolution. Ordinance number 5 to come.
No, ordinance number 5 just gives council the power to do it. It doesn't give anybody else any power to spend any city money.
Well, council is the people. We represent the people.
You represent the people, so
Right.
you
So
could
council-
decide to, if someone came and lobbied you to recall some other local official, you could decide to do that. But what I guess I would say is, I think it would be it has to be a very egregious situation to rise to the level of council wanting to get involved. And you all know each other's tendencies, you all know each other's belief systems, and I think you all know that only something as egregious as this is going to come onto your radar as something that you might want to expend city resources on. Something as egregious as this, and something that, as Chief Anderson and Heather Brooks have told you, poses a direct threat to the safety of our community and our law enforcement officers.
But I just wanted for clarification, because we're gonna amend an ordinance that right now exists to add recalls to it. We're gonna amend it, correct?
Correct, to allow you to allow you as council to direct staff to expend
In
resources.
my thought process, I was saying, well, how can this only be good for council when they want to recall another elected official? Why can't the people use this? Let's say we do something wrong, we made mistakes here, and they can't come back and use this ordinance against us to recall us?
No, and again, because it's
For
only
money?
for non-local officials, it would be, I think, unseemly for council to debate recalling one of its members. And this ordinance does not allow for that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna go to Counselor Vihil, then Counselor Hensley, and then Counselor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. My comments will be very similar to 2 weeks ago. Like Mr. Hunter Jack there, I also live 3 blocks away from the house that's been hit multiple times over the last 10 months, and kudos to the police officers for doing that over and over and over again. And like I said last time, it's frustrating as a counselor, especially in that part of the city, to get phone calls from the folks who live in that neighborhood who are in fear of going out, walking their dog, just living their life, for the people who live in that house. And then the police officers go there, arrest them, and they laugh. And that story is true. The people who live there told me that they're sitting on the curb laughing at our police officers as they make their search. That's insanity. That's insanity. And we can't let this happen. And, you know, I agree with you, Ms. Daniel, about the low level. I think we're on the exact same page on that, but it's not okay that there's people who've murdered folks in our valley who are walking around. But what are we doing? What are we doing? And we made some folks made a mistake in voting for him, and we see it now. We got to fix it, and let's go help fix. Let's jump in the effort and fix this. Another thing that bothers me is people who have been victimized are in fear of their life for whoever committed that crime, that it could happen again, or they're next on the list. And it's not okay that some of these folks are intimidated and in fear of the DA. That's not okay. So we got to do something about it. And I support this $10,000. And one small thing that was mentioned in here, and I'm glad that Mr. Commissioner Hersing's in the crowd tonight, is I think a solution is not bringing down the funding for the DA's office. Whoever is the next DA, I don't think the funding needs to go lower. That's only going to cause more problems, but just something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Vihil, Counselor Hensley, then Counselor Daniel.
I just left one thing out, and it wasn't mentioned, so I do want to be the voice for our animals as well. And I feel like as much as I said that from this point forward, any other person that goes through this, shame on us, the same for the animals as well.
Thank you, Counselor Hensley. Counselor Daniel.
So I know Counselor Suiza and Counselor Griego, Counselor with an S, Counselor with C, both spoke a little bit about this. I just want to be clear about the section 2 of the ordinance Counselor Griego is talking about, because it says city resources may be used to initiate and support recall petitions and disseminate information. So I'm going to do an ellipsis here. only if city council expressly finds and directs in a resolution containing specific supporting facts and circumstances that the recall petition or election issue on which it authorizes expenditure of city resources is one that will have a financial or operational impact on the city. I feel like with the work that the team has done thus far to bring us the information to share it moving forward has shown us that this is absolutely both a financial and operational impact and meets both of those standards. This is not something that we can do on a whim moving forward. This is not something that we can do on a whim because someone got mad about something, right? Like this is a big deal. And in the ordinance intentionally, we talk about that it has to have a financial and operational impact. And I just want to make that clear to our community, especially those who have concerns about this. And I will say that I had a very similar concern at the beginning. Should we not be involved in this as elected officials? However, I think the egregious nature of the actions that we are talking about puts us in a position where we need to have our staff who have the resources and who can act as city staff, act in a way to bring forward the information they have as city staff to help with this information, to help with the dissemination of information. Because they are city staff, that is how they get that information. I think it would be very difficult to ask our team members who now have this information in their job to go act as a regular citizen and try to balance that. They're always going to be seen as city staff, and we have to be thoughtful about that as well. And so I just want to say, to clarify, because I think it got a little murky there for a minute. And so I just wanted to say, to clarify that, I think it's pretty important in the ordinance where it talks about the specific impact it has on the city, and that we have to prove that before we could do something like this in the future.
Thank you, Councilor Daniel. Councilor Vio?
Just one quick point, Mayor, that it looks, if this passes tonight, I really hope that other municipalities and counties across the valley jump on board. And I kind of like that Alamosa's out in front of this and leading the charge. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other lights on, so I'll wrap up the comment section. And before I bring it back to council for a motion, for all of you who participated here in the audience and those of you on Zoom, I just want you to know that we hear you. We hear you, and we thank you for voicing your concerns to us. As a council, we've reached out to the governor's office, sent a letter to the AG, Attorney General's office. We followed the proper protocol and procedures to do what we can do. We still haven't been able to resolve the issues that many of you are facing. So now we have our only other option that's within our control, and that is to move forward with this ordinance to allow us to move forward with the recall efforts. It's not like we're going after any one particular person for any political party or any affiliations or anything like that. We're going after a district attorney who is failing us in many areas, who's leaving victims throughout the San Luis Valley. It's not just about Alamosa. We're talking about the 6 counties in the San Luis Valley. Many of you came here tonight from long distances just to voice your concerns because you haven't been heard in your own community. So this is bigger than just Alamosa, but it's been said insanity is doing the same thing over and over, but expecting a different result. We can't continue to do the same thing. We have to make a difference and change what we're getting, because I'm gonna tell you, I get the phone calls. I get the calls, and I know all the other council members get the calls too. And it's sad when you hear terror in people's voices because they're afraid that they're gonna be re-victimized, or they're afraid that their neighbor is going to harm them if they find out. They're afraid for their kids' safety. And it's sad. One of the reasons we're doing this recall is because the DA is not doing his job, and he's jeopardizing the safety of our law enforcement officers who put their lives on the line every single day, and it's affecting our operations. We can't continue to allow that to happen. We have to do something different. It's also violating the rights And he have violated the rights of many of you who are here and many of you who are on Zoom. And like Councilor Vigil said, that's not right. We can't continue to allow that to happen. And to have him increase the risk for our public safety when we as council were elected by the people and for the people because we are of the people, when we have an opportunity to do something like use the resources that we have available to make sure that we're able to prevent harm from happening to our public, we have no choice but to move forward in that area. So I am in favor of us using our resources to move forward with this recall effort so that we can, as a community, as a San Luis Valley community, bring about the needed change that we need to happen so that our people can feel safe again. So I'll turn it back over to Councilor Hensley.
Eric, I have a quick question before I make my motion. Do we need to do these as two separate motions or just?
We do, and I'm glad you asked that because people may want to vote differently
Okay.
on one or the other. So if we could do a motion on the ordinance, because if that doesn't pass, then the motion on the resolution would be moot, and then follow that by a motion on the resolution.
So then I'll go ahead and start with the motion to approve ordinance number 5-2022 on second reading.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please start voting.
The motion carried 4-1.
Okay. We're good? Councilor Hensley?
So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one.
Yes.
And so I'm going to go ahead and motion to approve, resolution 6-2022.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please start voting.
The motion carried 4-1.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Martinez. Thank you, staff. Thank you, audience. We appreciate you coming out here tonight, and we hope you all have safe travels back. Okay, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, quarterly update on housing and downtown plans. Nope.
Yes, Mayor, that's correct. I believe Rachel should be coming up.
Sorry, I have short legs. Good evening, City Council.
Good evening.
So I will be coming in front of you every quarter to give you updates on housing and on downtown. So the things that my new department and my new position are working on in the city. And we can just go over it pretty quickly. We brought just a few simple slides with some good pictures and just see if we can get that up there. So it's been just shy of 10 months that I've been with the city. And we're going to start with projects, theoretically. It's okay. I recently learned the challenges of PowerPoint and Zoom. I know, darn it. He's like an expert, he says. I'm just really glad I didn't go into a career in IT. I have so much respect for them. It's not my thing. Okay, so we'll just, maybe a picture's not that important. We did our road diet this summer. We took our lanes downtown from 3 to 2. I know it was a little bit of a controversial project, but I think it was also a really good example of the public process. Having our citizens show up and discuss things and give us feedback, I think was really important. And even though it was kind of trial by fire from my department, I think it was a really good example of how a planning department can really sort of lead the charge on changes downtown, but also interface with the citizens to achieve what they're really wanting. And I had a beautiful comment from our Main Street Committee yesterday during our meeting where they said, And I quote that the activities downtown and the changes that were made universally are loved by tourists and visitors. So, I mean, it's still a learning curve for the people that live here, but we're not even really getting complaints about the lines downtown, which are admittedly horrible. We don't get those from tourists, but they really just are starting to comment about how our downtown is the kind of downtown where it looks like there are things going on and where you'd want to stop. So we installed all of our curvy benches and our seating cubes. Our planters downtown are perennials and they're low water. So hopefully they come back in the spring. We're crossing our fingers. Our forest parklets are the big boxes that have mulch in them, and they will get trees this summer and some types of perennials. So we're just finishing up the final parts of the engineering for the rectangular rapid flashing beacons. Those are going to go at Hunt in Maine, at 6th and Maine, and San Juan in Maine and San Juan in 6th. And so those are kind of our two areas that are most dangerous for pedestrians. And those will have really great signalized crossings for pedestrians. We ordered 3 more parklets. They'll be going in hopefully in April. They'll be in front of Milagros, Hunan's, and the Thai Hut. There are final parklets. And we got to be a test case for Mod Street. So we got to help them figure out their engineering problems. So when we had all of those little, I don't know really the nice way to say it, but when they were kind of falling down, we worked with the company and they retrofitted it with their engineers. And that's wonderful because it's a Colorado company out of Durango. And now they have all the engineering in the field testing done. So when they sell this product, there aren't issues for other communities. So it was good. We're also stepping up code enforcement. We did locks. We made locks available for everybody who signs up for city trash service. And a lot of people did it. We're getting ready to send out, we've sent out other courtesy letters, but we're sending out a courtesy letter specific to code enforcement that will really encourage people to keep their alleys cleaned up and keep the trash down. It'll also give an update on what we're doing for the lines downtown, which is working with CDOT on a mill and fill, which is grinding down Main Street, resurfacing it, and then restriping it, which should permanently fix the problem. So we're still talking to CDOT about that, but we're pretty confident, and the Public Works Department is pretty confident that's a good solution. Okay, so funding, a lot of our department is trying to find funding for these projects downtown. So far, we've gotten over 400,000 in grant funding. 430,000 of that was a Rural Economic Development Initiative grant. And that's to help Friday's Health Plans build their new 177 space parking lot on the corner of 6th and Ross. And that's for their employees parking Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And then after 5, it'll be for the public. And on the weekends, it'll be for the public. And then it'll also be the permanent home of the farmer's market. And then we're also resurfacing and doing a more efficient layout for the parking lot behind JCPenney's. And that should add 38 spaces. And that's a partnership with Alamosa State Bank and a couple other private property owners that have shares in that parking lot. We also have a $11,400 grant with the Colorado Creative Corps, and that's for David Montgomery to finally realize his vision for a mural on the south side of Papers of Distinction. So right out in the atmosphere, we have a $1.2 million grant to do the Hunt Avenue Cultural Trail. And then we did not get our second Colorado Creative Corps grant. It's kind of hard to go back to the same funder for the same project. So it was kind of a stretch, but we tried. Pardon?
I would just also add that we were successful in between $150,000 and $250,000 for the lane diet and the flashing beacons for grants as well.
Yep. That happened before I started, but those are also, it was a banner year for grants for downtown. That revitalized, the city maxed out, Heather's applications maxed out what they can be funded for the Revitalize Main Street program and the smaller grant program. So they have 2 levels of grant, like giant capital construction projects and then smaller ones. And so we got all the funds they had for that, and that funded all the cool stuff we did downtown. This is the larger grant pool for the Hunt Avenue Cultural Trail. And then we did apply for a USDA business development grant like 2 weeks ago, and it doesn't look like we're getting that one, but it might be something we can look at it again next spring. It seemed to be like a technicality. The sketch on the bottom is actually David Montgomery's sketch for the mural. So you can kind of look at what it's going to look like. He worked on that a few years ago and he's been trying to get it painted ever since. It's a traditional agriculture scene where they're making chicos and collecting choke cherries. So we got to meet with the deputy director of CDOT this summer. We did talk with our Region 5 director and the new planning and land use staff that serves at the executive office for CDOT. So these are the people that actually run the Revitalize Main Street program. He used to be the planner in Rifle, really great guy. They had a wonderful time downtown, loved Alamosa, see tons of potential. So just time to build all of those relationships with people. We became an official Colorado Main Street affiliate community, which was important, but that also means that we're establishing that relationship with that organization and moving forward with the trainings that they offer. We've been talking to CHAFA and to DOLA about funding. We're working with the Chamber and Visitors Bureau and their destination development specialist, who's doing all those cool things like Restaurant Week and First Fridays, and had a really successful Halloween. We are also talking with the art department at Adams State a little bit about doing some sort of partnering with business owners downtown to do some facade work. We were hoping we'd get it in the spring semester, but our schedules didn't quite line up, so we're still working on that. So we're also working with the farmers market, trying to encourage them to stay downtown. It does look like they're committed to using the Fridays lot. Friday health plans, working with them in a lot of ways, get their building built. We're doing pre-development meetings with them, trying to get them the funding to do this parking lot of theirs, but also encouraging them to be good neighbors and respect the fact that there's a lot of businesses downtown and they need to keep their employees parking in places that don't hinder people's ability to have business. So lots of pre-development meetings with potential property owners and business owners and talking to other mural artists and talking to architects and some of the nonprofits and all the cool people that are doing fun things downtown. Outreach. So I haven't shared it with anyone because it's silly, but technically I did an interview for Region 5 CDOT. So I was this summer, it's on their website, you can Google it, but it was nice for them to recognize how vibrant our downtown is. And it looked really good. I just had really weird hair that day. So I also presented at the Chamber and Rotary luncheons, really good conversation with business leaders in our community, just nice talks, just a really great opportunity to tell them what development services does and talk about things downtown and make sure that when they're mad at someone about downtown, that they yell at me and not Kathy or Heather. So also we've done a bunch of interviews with the Valley Courier and the Alamosa Citizen. We just did an Alamosa Citizen podcast. We also were featured in the Colorado Sun talking about Alamosa and talking about our Mod Street parklets, which was kind of cool. I've given presentations to the Board of County Commissioners, who are great partners on some of the projects and show a real interest in some of the things going on downtown, which is super, super exciting. And then also I had to present with Grand Junction in Colorado Springs, which they should have told me in advance and they should have let me go first, but I had to go after them. So when Colorado Springs says they'd spent $1.8 billion on their downtown, and I was like, we have spent $100,000 on our downtown. It was really funny. But they were great. They were great presentations. And then we were actually the planning document that was produced out of all those land use sessions with DOLA and CDOT, which, I mean, those are director level discussions and they were really high level discussions. It was fantastic that they let us be part of them. We're definitely the smallest community involved. But then our downtown project, our road diet, was one of the case studies that was presented to the state legislature. So that was really cool. This is housing. So I led with relationships because a lot of what housing is right now is just trying to build partnerships in our community. So we met with 14 different housing developers. It ranges from the conversations we're having with CRHDC about their different developments, talking about the next phase of River Trace north of the high school. SLV Health is trying to build a housing development. The Housing Coalition is doing all sorts of fun stuff, one of which is like a terrible secret, but I think we all know where it is. But it's really exciting. Also working with CHAFA's small scale housing technical assistance developers, which is actually like a granting program where CHAFA will hire professional architects and planners for you and help you do a housing development. So the plans coming out of that are actually really beautiful too. And it's a universal design, so it's for all levels of ADA and blind and deaf and all accessible. Which we have very little ADA housing in Alamosa. Obviously, we have a housing shortage, but ADA is something that we don't even really talk about, but we need it desperately. Talked about funding opportunities with the DOLA's Department of Housing and CHAFA. Talked about it with the Housing Colorado organization. We're working with the State Attorney General's office, the Colorado Division of Housing, and the Housing Coalition regarding some of the injustices that are happening in our manufactured home parks, including the illegal sales and some of the tenants' rights that are being violated. So Don Melgares has really taken lead on that, but they're really important conversations to be having. And our attorney was able to sit in on some of those as well. And then we continue to participate in the San Luis Valley-wide land use and regulatory meetings and just the Valley-wide coalition meetings for the Valley-wide housing plan. So these are some of the projects. You've kind of seen these pictures before. This would be the next phase of Kiva. So we've worked on changing our regulations, trying to be more friendly to housing. We completed a lot of that in December. We'll be doing a little bit more this spring to sort of round some things out about some of our, we want to increase our density in our highest dense district. But we've talked about short-term rentals a lot. But it's an important part of the housing conversation. It's a tool in the toolbox. Talked about density bonuses for affordable houses that we approved, trying to make tweaks to our setbacks and different house types in different zone districts, just to sort of squeeze in housing wherever we can. We've been having weekly coordination calls with CRHTC's architect basically since October. And so it's an hour every week and they're excellent phone calls. I mean, I honestly have joked before, but like we should be paying that guy because we learned so much from him and he's just working on innovative, beautiful things. And if this development is built in Alamosa, it will be a project that people across the country will reference because of how innovative it's going to be. It's a beautiful project, but it's also, I think, one of the only ways to build truly affordable, diverse housing in a community and do it in a way that's achievable when construction costs are as high as they are right now. We are also talking with the Colorado Partnership for Education and Rural Revitalization, and that's with the Attorney General's office as well. But it's a program that they're partnering with Trinidad State College, where they actually have a program where students go to class half the time, and then they're paid to work half the time on rehabbing houses. It's been very successful in Trinidad. I think they've recently acquired the funding to start it in Alamosa, and we've been trying to help them navigate the waters here just because there aren't as many houses, and usually houses that need to be rehabbed get picked up pretty quickly. So trying to figure out some of those houses that are vacant and put them in touch with property owners who maybe don't know that, they can sell their property and get it fixed up and we can add to our housing stock. We're also having conversations with the Colorado Association of Recovery Residences, and that's relatively new, but sober houses are a necessity in our community. I don't think that some of the places they've been located in the past were appropriate. The one next to, Starbucks probably wasn't the best location for a sober house, but the city wasn't part of those conversations. And so now it's about basically just what planning is. Where is the most appropriate place to put something that our community really needs? And it was great that they're reaching out to us. So like when they asked about the Walsh, we were like, maybe not downtown is the best location for this, but it's great that they're talking to us. We also have the world's most amazing GIS database. I did not create it. That's why it's amazing. But it's categorizing all of our housing by quality and type that really will help us prioritize which houses we're going to try to help with rehab money when we go into that phase of trying to fix our housing stock. And, we're almost done. Outreach. So interviews with this Alamosa citizen and the Courier about the UDC changes. We've given presentations to City Council at your work session about these housing developments. Also working with our Public Works Department, since 300 houses is going to have a pretty significant impact on infrastructure. especially in the location that this is going off of Craft. We're working on our housing resources for the city's website. So it was identified in the housing action plan. It's a one-stop shop so that you can get on there and you can find all the housing resources available in our community in one place. So we have some good first drafts of that. And we started our housing education campaign and we experimented with you guys a little bit when I was showing you all my cartoon doctors and nurses and stuff. Training has been a big theme since housing is not something I ever worked at really at the county. And so I attended training in Pueblo about the 1271 money. I went to the Housing Colorado conference, which a lot of the things that Alamosa is doing are just really visionary, you know, and I don't think that we give ourselves enough credit as a small community or any community in Colorado that we're having a lot of these really hard conversations about housing and acknowledging that city government's responsible for getting involved in helping developers fill the capital gap, or we're never going to have more housing and sufficient housing in our community. And then, excuse me, I just recently attended, CHAF has put out a really excellent resource for housing developers. It's a training guide that basically goes over all the resources that are available in Colorado for people that are trying to do housing development. So it's available on their website and it's a fantastic resource. So that's what we've been up to in terms of housing in downtown.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rachel. I'll turn it over to council for comment. We got Councilor Griego.
The downtown, you talked about remilling the main street. Is that just discussion or is that gonna happen or?
They're pretty serious discussions with CDOT. So I think we're just trying to coordinate when it's going to happen.
But it will happen.
Mhm.
Because that has been something that is, you try to drive down there and if you follow semis and vehicles, they're like this.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what line to take and stuff. Also, on housing part, the old Boyd School on State Street, is that gonna finally develop into a housing deal or?
I kind of hinted at it. The sale isn't complete yet. I will say that when it went up for foreclosure auctions, Aaron Miltenberger and I, who'd kind of been working on this in parallel, got the current property owners who are locals. It's Georgia and Dave Cook, who were the former owners of Alcon Construction. We kind of like cornered them in a room and like begged them to buy Boyd so that we'd have a local owner, so that we'd have at least some part of the conversation in what happens to Boyd. And they did it. They went and they bought it. They invested in our community. They did that incredible philanthropic thing for us. And now they're selling it to a housing developer, but it's not final. So I'm not gonna like bring it up, but it's also probably something that never would have happened if a local person hadn't bought it. The organization that's buying it for housing is like not even the highest bidder. So the Cooks are really just doing this out of their love for Alamosa.
One more last question. CRHDC is gonna build 300 homes in 3 different deals. It's a lot of homes.
It's a huge housing development and they're going to start their annexation process in next month. So it's pardon?
And Charlie, I think we showed you those visuals at the retreat.
Yeah.
It's not a small time frame for construction. This is like their first phase, River Trace. They've been developing that since the early 90s. So, I mean, market's going to dictate how fast this is built, but it really is a testament of a good layout and how you can lower your per square foot costs and capitalize on your infrastructure if you build more dense and more diverse layouts of a community.
You've done a lot of work. Thank you so much.
Okay, Councilor Hensley, followed by Councilor Daniel.
Rachel, thank you for sharing this. When you put it all together like that, it shows a lot. It's hard to imagine that you can do that much stuff in that small amount of time. We have a phenomenal staff and you are a great addition to it. And we're blessed to have you.
Thank you, Councilor Hensley. Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate all of your presentation. Because it's a new conversation, I just want to say thank you for the recovery homes conversation. And just thinking about how our community supports people in recovery. And so being thoughtful about where those houses are located, but also how we help the managers and the access to resources, because we don't want to have them in a place where people have to walk forever. And it's like, you know, and so really thinking about what recovery means in our community and how that can impact, and working with that executive director, I think will be really, really helpful. So I'm super excited for those conversations and thank you for having them.
I should have probably also added that my office is a fun combination of carrot and stick. So these are all the fun pictures and everything's great, but the building inspector works in my department and we work closely with code enforcement. So one of our recovery residences in town, when the director came to visit, found that there were really unsafe living conditions. And so the people in sober living houses need to be safe and they need to recover in dignity. And this was not an appropriate place for them to be living. And so the next, I think 2 days later, we had the building inspector in there and started code enforcement proceedings so we can get it safe and cleaned up.
And Rachel, thank you and your team for the work you all are doing in housing as well as downtown. I was really impressed with all the outreach that you and Heather have been doing as well that you documented. I see you all out and about all the time, but to see it all laid out right there for council to see, that's very impressive. I know you often say you didn't know a lot about housing, but I can tell you in the circles that I circulate in when it comes to housing development, you and Deacon are becoming some of the well-known experts for people all across the state of Colorado with your thoughts and the things that you've come up with. So very proud of you. Keep up the great work as a team.
I have a great staff and really they just make me look good. So that's really just Deacon.
Okay. Anybody else? No, that's it. Okay, well, thank you so very much.
You're not quite rid of me yet.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna take that nice feel-good jive we're on right now, and then I'm going to ask you to double fines.
So just a
Okay.
minute, Mayor, did you want to announce the next agenda item before
Yes.
recess starts? Okay.
Sure, we'll give you a breather real quick. Okay, Rachel? All right, so next item on the agenda is the first reading of ordinance number 6-2022, an ordinance establishing a downtown pedestrian safety zone and doubling fines for speeds related to traffic violations in such zone.
Okay, so the road diet isn't something that development services invented, and it's not something our planners invented, and it's not something Heather invented. I mean, it is the national standard. We did complete streets training last week with the Federal Highway Administration at the end of the week. This is what communities do everywhere to make their roads safer. So this is the industry standard. These people that are experts in safety, the engineers across the board, road diets are how you do it. It's more effective, really, than having your speed limits be higher, more effective than code enforcement. Doing psychologically training your motorists to slow down and look for pedestrians has shown over and over again to save lives. So, I mean, the facts are just there. This isn't anything Alamosa invented. This is just something that when our hands are tied because we're dealing with a state highway, a road diet's one of the few options we have to slow people down. So again, it was a great collaboration with the public where we decided to bump things back, but cumulatively, it was 3 feet. So we added a lot of space and it helps people feel more comfortable getting out of their cars and doing their on-street parking. But my very next Main Street meeting, all the business owners downtown were like, people are going fast again. Immediately people started going fast again. And they've brought it up at every meeting since October. And so Main Street Committee, they're really invested in our downtown. They're really our downtown champions. And when they feel really strongly about something, I feel like as staff, we have an obligation to follow that through. And so they asked a couple months ago if we would look into whether or not we could increase enforcement downtown or increase fines for speeding downtown. And they've just sort of kept asking. And we did do the research, and Heather's been talking to law enforcement and Chief Anderson's been talking to other law enforcement agencies. So this is two-pronged. This is us increasing our enforcement downtown. So if nothing else, we sort of create a culture where people are like, oh, if I speed through Alamosa, I'm gonna get pulled over. We all know the towns in Colorado where if you drive through it too fast, you are definitely getting pulled over. And we kind of want to add Alamosa to that list. And then again, it's not really worth it if it's not a little bit painful. And so the fines for speeding downtown will be double. And then probably the most important part of this change is the outreach we'll do about it, the signage that will be downtown about it, the things that will really just advertise, like you're in a pedestrian safety zone, look out for pedestrians and please slow down. So those are sort of the powerful parts of this change. And we wish it weren't necessary. And, you know, maybe if we hadn't moved things, people would still be uncomfortable enough that they'd be going like 5 miles an hour, but everybody adapts. So this is kind of the next best option.
Okay, I'll turn it over to council for any comments. Councilor Vijo,
No comments, Mayor. I'm ready to make a motion.
okay, please do.
I move that we, on first reading, pass ordinance number 6-2022, an ordinance establishing a downtown pedestrian safety zone and doubling fines for speed-related traffic violations in such zone, and set it for a public hearing on April 6th at 7 PM or soon thereafter.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? If not, please start voting. Ms. Martinez?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you so very much. We really appreciate everything. Okay, that brings us to the next item on our agenda, under finance. Resolution number 5-2022, first budget amendment for 2022, the 2022 annual budget.
Hello,
Hello.
it's 9 o'clock and we're talking numbers, so we'll try to be a little quick through this one. As you all know, a budget's a living document, and as changes get made, we need to change the budget so that we can continue our operations. And the great news with this resolution is we have a lot of grants. A lot of these things council has already been made aware of. And so it should go pretty quickly as we go through this resolution. So most of the things are, as I said, are going to be grants or carryovers from 2021. As you know, supply chains were really harsh at the end. A lot of things that we had anticipated getting done at the, by the end of 2021 didn't happen because we couldn't get some things in. And just some regular carryover that you're going to have. So I hope you all took a little look at it before this so that we can go a little quicker, but always there'll be opportunity for questions after we get done this. So the first page of the resolution 5/2022, the first page is the revenues that are coming in. The second, when we flip it over, we'll talk about the expenses. So let's do some good news here. In the general fund, we have a $430,000 grant, which Rachel just talked about, the Ready Grant for the downtown parking project. 430,000 from DOLA on that. We have a lead grant for 20,000. We got an additional amount for our lead grant, so we get to up that. So that's awesome. We have $50,000, which is a carryover grant for the pedestrian lights, which we weren't able to get to last year, but they're on their way now. And we also were able to get $4,200 from the Department of Justice for a bulletproof grant. So that's $500,000 in grants just from the last time that we did our budget in October through now. That's awesome for the general fund. Enterprise fund is doing just as well on the grants. So we'll move on down to the enterprise fund. The first item there is we're going to reallocate some of our ARPA funding, which we had discussed in previous council meetings, $241,000 to help out with the Victoria drainage problem that we're dealing with, the overages there. Which I'm just going to make a little caveat with a lot of our programs. I think this year we may be having another budget amendment just with the inflation rates and the cost of all materials, things that we had budgeted last year. I just heard yesterday that inflation through nationwide is up to almost 8%, which is the highest it's been in 40 years. So it keeps going up. We have uncertain times. So just as a caveat, I'm not going to go into that anymore, but just be aware that there could be other things coming later. We don't know yet. The next one we have is a grant that Harry has apprised you of. It's $443, $40,000 for, yeah, that wasn't very, a little thing there. We got a lot of money there for our crusher equipment, which is a huge grant. That is awesome. Next, we have a $90,000 carryover grant for water improvement, a $25,000 mini grant also from RREO, and a $25,000 grant for our water master utility plan. So that's another $824,000 in grants there. Community Rec Fund, we've got a few carryovers. We have a $48,000 carryover for the Fishing is Fun dredging grant. We have a $7,500 Friends of the Library grant, which is new for this year. And then another carryover of $37,000 for a Trails grant. So $93,000 in grants there that we're accounting for them in the rec fund. If you want to flip it over, we'll go through the expenses real quick. So in the court, we're asking to increase the expenses by $4,350. This is due to the judge's salary, which has also become before council. So that's not a new item for you as well. Non-departmentally, we've got a carryover for the Artscape program of $13,000. And we have a carryover of roof repairs from the CIP for $25,000 that need to get done this year. We're also planning on decreasing the budget. We're going to move the city hall vehicle back a year on the CIP. This is going to help offset some of the overages that we have on the police cars that will come down later that came in a lot more expensive than we had budgeted for previously. In IT, we need to increase the bandwidth so that we can do all the work we need to do, and that's going to cost us $3,300. At your retreat, you had approved $5,000 for a part-time admin person for the PD department. That is in this resolution. We have the offset for the revenue for the lead increase, $20,000. Bulletproof vest, $4,200. And $14,000 in the increase for the PD vehicles due to cost increases. We have for the development services, we have $530,000 that we need to budget so that Rachel can get busy in her parking lots. And DOLA is coughing up 430 of that, but the city needs to put in 100,000 as a match on that to get that project done. In the streets department, we've got $50,000, which is a carryover for the wayfinding signage grant that we had. On that one, it's $25,000 is a grant and $25,000 is coming from the city to pay for that. We also have $50,000 for a carryover on Main Street pedestrian lights. That was the grant we talked about before. And then lastly, for the general fund, we have $9,000 to increase the benefits from combining 2 part-time positions to a full-time position. And that position finally got hired. That has been a difficult position to hire. So we do have a full-time person who started this week, which we are so excited to have that person with us. Moving on, so that's a total increase of $728,000 for the general fund, a decrease of $26,000, net $700,000.
I'm so sorry, Lisa, to jump in, and I am sorry that I didn't catch this before. On your item for development services of 530,000 increase because of the downtown parking project. Yeah. I think in our budget for non-departmental or in the CIP, we did have the 100,000 already allocated for the match. So do we want to take that 100,000 out of this? Because I don't think we need to increase the budget another 100,000.
Yeah, if it's already in there, then we'd need to do that. If that was a miss. So that would change that to 430 if you want to make a note of that when you're making the resolution. And that would make the net effect down to 601,000.
And again, Lisa and council, I'm sorry, I did not catch that before tonight's meeting.
Well, I'm sorry that I didn't catch it either. But it's something we can work through. Okay, on to enterprise fund. We have 455,000 for the crusher equipment. As we said before, we have 430 of that that's coming from a grant. We have 69,000 for the final Hickory Jackson contract, which you are aware of. We have 69,000 as a carryover for a vac truck that needs to be done that we couldn't get in last year. The 241,000 for the increase in cost for Victoria drainage. And we do have a little bit of a decrease that we can offset for we had crusher rental budgeted. And so we're able to decrease that by 11,000. For sanitation, we have an increase of 5,000 for toter dumpsters, the increase on the costs for those. 45,000 for improvements at the recycling center. 25,000 of that is going to be paid for through a grant. We have 90,000 for a carryover for the wastewater improvement grant. So for the enterprise fund, that's 963,000. That will be in effect. Community rec, we've got the 7,500 for the Friends of Library grant, $500 for a carryover for last year's Friends of the Library, 20,000 for a carryover for a Hustler Parks mower that couldn't get in last year. And we've got the carryover for the 48,000 fishing is fun, and a carryover for the trails of the 38,000. So total effect for expenditures in the rec fund is 114,000. And I will leave it to you for questions or comments.
Okay, I'll open it up for questions. Counselor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. No questions, just kudos to the whole staff for working hard, getting those grants to help offset our monies. And Lisa, thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Counselor Vihil. Counselor Griego.
I had one question, and the
Yes.
conversation we had with Rachel that CDOT was thinking of remilling down Main Street. Is that something CDOT's gonna do, or is that something we're gonna have to come up with some kind of monies?
CDOT's
do.
going to do that, correct?
No,
Rachel?
so it's going to be, it's going to be a partnership. And so there might be some cost to the city. And at that point, we would, once we have a handle of what that would be, we would be asking council to include that as a future budget amendment. The impression we had though, I don't know how many meetings it was. It was a few meetings ago when we were doing an update and Harry went over, what some of the different costs might be. And we indicated, one might be around 20 to 50 and council's like, really, we need to do what needs to be done. And so I think by partnering with CDOT, they're talking about using some of their crews and especially for doing some of the traffic management and some things like that. So we think we're going to be well within that kind of ballpark if it even gets up that high.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Daniel.
If there are no further questions, I was going to make a motion that we approve the budget amendment, which is resolution 5-2022 with the $100,000 amendment needing to come off from the increase in costs.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I just have a quick comment. Thank you all so very much for all the work you're putting into getting all these grants to offset the funding, and really appreciate that extra effort. Thank you.
And
Okay.
just so we're clear on your motion, Counselor Daniel, that would be the $100,000 coming off of line 02-29 in the development services line item, correct?
Correct, Eric, thank you.
Okay. Good. All right. Start voting, please. Ms. Martinez.
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. That brings
Thank
us. Thank you very much. That brings us to the next item on the agenda. Under Human Resources and Risk Management, the first reading of ordinance number 7-2022, and ordinance amending the established pay plan for the city officers and employees to accommodate a new co-responder position.
Thank you, Mayor. As I shared with council, we did a competitive process for the selection of our community partner for the co-responder program. We selected Valleywide, and as part of their proposal, we will only be contracting with them for help with managing the program and supervising this employee. However, the city itself is going to be the one that hires the co-responder. And so, as you know, I, as the city manager, am not allowed to hire people unless they're in our pay plan. And so that is what is before you tonight. We have two different positions for the co-responder, or two different locations within the pay plan, I should say, just one FTE. If the position is non-certified, they would be placed at grade K. And if they are certified, they would be placed in grade M. And that is the only change that we are requesting tonight in the pay plan.
Okay, Council. Councilor Vihil.
Mayor, if there's no questions or comments, I move that we approve on first reading ordinance number 7-2022 and set it for a public hearing on April 6th at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, please start voting. Ms. Martinez?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering, that time change is affecting us up here.
Now we gotta keep going, Mayor. Let's go. Let's go.
Okay, that brings us to the committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Counselor Hensley?
So I went to the tree board and as always, lots of excitement over trees. We did get, or the Alamosa Tree Board got the Growth Award. It's the first time since 2017. And what that does, that means they went above and beyond the Tree City standards. So that was pretty awesome. The Tree Cost Share Program is open right now, and we have gotten some applications, but we want to make sure people know that's still there so that we can definitely use up the money that we have for that. And then we did receive a CTC grant of $3,000 that is going to be used to help beautify the recycling center. So those are some of the highlights, many more things, but those were the highlights.
Thank you for the update, Counselor Hensley. Counselor Grego?
Just one comment for Liz, tomorrow at 6 or 6:30 at the golf.
At 6 o'clock, and I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah,
My
no.
granddaughter is in a wrestling tournament, so I want to go watch her wrestle. Thank you.
Awesome,
No
awesome.
problem. Thank you.
All right, good. No further council comments. That brings us down to staff announcements.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a lot for you. I do have the reminder that this Friday at 2 o'clock is our monthly cleanup at St. Benedict. I will not be able to be there, so it would be great if we could have some city leadership. I also heard last month that we only had 1 or 2 volunteers, and so it probably would be great if we could have a showing. So if you could help spread the word, that would be really helpful. A few of us did tour the project, the Iron Horse housing development that's across the street from the high school. It's a really great development, and I'm excited to see the quality of life that our residents will have in that development, including the community center that they have, the community gardens that they're planning on having, and those nice spacious rooms, including, I believe, air conditioning, which everyone seemed very excited about. I also wanted to give just a brief update. As council knows, you appointed me to be the city's representative on the SLV opioid regional committee, and that group is continuing discussions on how it would want to allocate the funds that we receive from the state through the bankruptcy and other court decisions. They're really starting to focus in on maybe splitting it between prevention and treatment and recovery. But obviously there's a lot of different categories just within those two. And so looking at also how access can impact those two categories as well, being a rural community, and that these funds need to be for the whole valley. Again, as a reminder, we are likely to get around 120,000 a year for the whole valley. So the group is very cognizant of the discussions of, do we want to use that to leverage for other grants? Do we want to use it for the areas we can't get grants and work as partners to get other grants for those other areas? And then there is the discussion of, if all of the cities were willing to give their contribution as well, what those amounts might be. And so I'll have those figures for council when we look at our IGA that will be coming before you at one of the next meetings for your consideration as well. But it's a group of over 20 people, and it's an interesting conversation to have facilitated, but it's a good group of people with experts that touch all different spectrums of working with individuals with opioid abuse and recovery and prevention. So it's a very good, positive group. And that is all I have from a staff update.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brooks. Appreciate that. That brings us to consent calendar A. I'm sorry, consent calendar B. We've done A already. Councilor Vijo.
Mayor, I move that we approve consent calendar B.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? Not? Please start voting.
The
Okay.
motion carried 4-1.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That brings us down to council comments. Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two things. Congratulations to all the Valley basketball teams. Both Sanford teams and Centauri's boys got second place at the state tournament. So the tradition of basketball just is awesome down there. And the next thing is this, is I saw on the news last night, a couple of communities up north on the Front Range whose police forces are sending their outdated bulletproof vests and other tactical gear to Ukraine to help with the war. And I'm wondering if Alamosa could consider something like that, if we even have those kinds of things laying around that we can't use anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vihil. Councilor Griego, then Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple, the mayor, myself, and other elected officials met with a group from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. What they're been doing for the past 4 years is doing an assess and infrastructure review with the future healthcare needs of veterans across America. And they come up with several recommendations that will go to what they call an air commission that will review them. I was going to just point out a couple of bulletins here. This will cement VA as the primary world-class and coordinator of veterans healthcare for generations to come. Build a healthcare network with the right facilities in the right places to provide the right care for all veterans, including underserved and at-risk veterans populations in every part of the country, making sure that our facilities and services are where our veterans are at. What they did say, they're going to shut some clinics down throughout the state of Colorado. One thing that was real positive for us is they're not shutting our clinic down. What they did tell us is that the enrollment is down. That's something that we need to start pushing because, like you said, these are recommendations, and if the next go around, there might be a possibility they might shut the clinic down. So another thing too that I wanted to mention, on the 26th of March, they're having a Vietnam Veterans Day celebration. And that's going to happen from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. over at the National Guard Armory. So everybody's welcome to come down and share with the Vietnam veterans and so. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Griego, and once again, thank you for always representing the city at the veterans events and whenever they have meetings. Thank you. You're welcome. Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to say we went through a lot of things in this meeting, and I think that we would not be able to have the good news that we had from the Boys and Girls Club and from our development services program, and then the hard things that we had regarding the change to our ordinance for the Fair Campaign Practices Act, updating our budget, and like without the staff that we have. And so I just want to say thank you. This was a really, really, really tough meeting, and there was a lot of meat in this meeting. And so I really appreciate the time, effort, and energy it takes to get us prepared to do our jobs, because you all spent so much time doing your jobs. So thank you for that. And you're amazing. And then the second thing is happy St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. I hope everyone has a fantastic, fantastic day and remembers to wear green.
Thank you. Thank you. No, that's it. Okay, I'll just wrap things up. I would like to thank all of the staff and all of council for tonight's meeting and all the efforts you put into the work. Now that we've passed the ordinance to where we can move forward with the recall effort, I'm going to sound a plea to everyone in the San Luis Valley. It's going to take at least 5,000, no less than 5,000 signatures that we should be able to submit to get validation on a recall. That's going to take a lot of people, a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of door knocking. We're going to need everybody. We're going to need people from different parts of different counties as well. So I'm going to use this opportunity to ask those people in those counties, whenever people are coming by asking for your participation on this petition, in order for us to be successful, we need the numbers. Please help us in making sure that we're successful in this recall effort so that we could make the change we need to have in our community. Thank you. That's all I have.
And
Yes.
Mayor, sorry, I just want to add on to that. It's critical before any petitions are circulated that there is a process to get that language certified. And so, following this vote, staff can now work on drafting that language and submitting it. And then we can make sure we have all the information for the volunteers on how do you circulate the petition? Are there regulations related to that? Making sure it has the right language on it. Staff can engage with those meetings for the recall pain that are being held. I think there's another one scheduled for this Saturday, but that already kind of conflicts with some other plans. But staff will be reaching out to those individuals who've been organizing that, as well as some others that have been brought to our attention who might be able to help from a recall perspective. So we need those signatures, and you're dead on correct with the 5,000. And we do want it to come from across the valley, but I also want to make sure that we don't waste anyone's time and we don't waste anyone's signature, and we get it on the correct recall petitions.
Yes, and thank you, Heather. And you mentioned also updates will be on our website for those who would like to know what's going on. So feel free to go to our website to get the most recent updated information.
And Mayor, we plan to have a standing item on your future agendas of just updates on where we are. So every meeting will be providing an update as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so very much, Ms. Brooks, and thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Meeting is adjourned.